Councilmember Adams.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a project that is in District D that we're really proud of, and this is one of those examples, Mayor, that we talked about how housing includes in the process of the resolution when we're spending money. So many of you know where Worthing High School is. It's the actual apartment complex that sits right behind Worthing High School. And I just want to commend Tori and the housing department and and the board for working really closely with our office on this particular item. They have already begun the communication with the apartment residents about relocation and moving forward and showing them where we're going. So this is a great addition to the district. I'm proud to support this item, and I will ask my colleagues if you would please support this item concerning Wilmington development in District D. It's been a long time coming, and this is something where we're replacing some old not abandoned, but old apartment complex that was there with something more urban and newer for our residents in the community. Thank you, Mayor.
Further discussion? Moving to a vote in favor, opposed, item carries.
Item 9 is an ordinance.
Discussion? Councilmember Pennington.
Mayor, I have proposed a amendment to section 4775.1 to add commercial accounts. We passed out a copy of that written amendment to everyone. Mr. Lester and I have been in conversations with the city attorney on this, and I think this whole ordinance to grant the additional hearing procedures to authorize them is a test thing where the matter can be re-reviewed by Public Works and by the mayor's office and so forth if it's not working in accordance with the way we hope it would be. And we think it's fair to consider commercial accounts for hearings as well as the residential accounts. So I present that amendment and ask that it be approved.
Second.
Discussion on the amendment. I have a number of council members in the queue, but I would ask you to address the amendment. Councilmember Lassiter.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may say that I do support Councilmember Pennington's amendment and maybe stray just a little bit from that, from the extent of saying for the total ordinance revision, I want to thank City Attorney Feldman and Director Kruger for working very closely with Councilmember Pennington and I on addressing the total issues. Over the last couple of years, or the last year that I've been here, I think a number of us have heard a number of issues from our colleagues and from our citizens about what is perceived to be fair in this process. And I think that Mr. Kruger and Mr. Feldman have worked very hard through their departments to try to listen to those concerns and to address those both with the main ordinance, and I definitely support my colleagues' amendment on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember, and I want to thank you and Councilmember Pennington. We're always happy to have council members who really want to go down in the weeds and not just try to grapple with it in the chamber. Councilmember Christian.
Not to the amendment.
Councilmember Cohen to speak to the amendment. Councilmember Brown to speak to the amendment.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Does commercial accounts include churches and nonprofits? Is that all inclusive?
Mr. Feldman.
Under the exceptional circumstances, nonprofits are already in there, which includes the churches and community associations. Councilmember Pennington's amendment would add commercial, just like they're covered under the league adjustment.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification.
Councilmember Adams.
Thank you. Will the commercial, will there be the process will be the same when looking at the adjustments? Is there a certain percentage that they can't go below when they're looking at particular adjustments in consideration for commercial properties?
Under Councilmember Pennington's amendment, the commercial user would be treated just like a residential user.
Okay, so there won't be a separate process because of the amount may be more?
No, they'd be treated the same.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion on the amendment, Councilmember Martin.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor. Maybe this is to Councilor Feldman. Under this amendment, who would be excluded from this? Because it seems like we're covering just about everything.
No one would be excluded for the exceptional circumstance based on this amendment. Okay. Just like under the leak adjustment, no one is excluded.
So why would we put language in that includes folks and no one is excluded, instead of putting any customer who receives a bill would be okay to go through this adjustment period, this protest.
We tied it in with the original language from the ordinance where under the leak adjustment provision, there was identification of different users, whereas under the unusually large bill adjustment, it was just single family. So we just continued with the use of the same language. But I would agree, if you say all customers, it's all customers, so.
Good point, Councilmember. Councilmember Davis.
Mayor, forgive me for my order, but is it appropriate at the table to add that to this amendment?
Councilmember has no, it has no practical impact. It's, if Councilmember Pennington wishes to restate his motion and council approves, I think. This makes it consistent with the way the rest of, there's more information in the ordinance, and this makes it consistent with the rest of the ordinance. Sir?
One of my colleagues just brought up a point that there are customers that we contract with to provide water, which would not come under this. This is a different kind of a customer, so I think we do have to stay with the distinction that we utilize in the ordinance.
They have other mechanisms for resolving disputes, but since we do have more customers than the ones identified here.
They have contractual mechanisms.
Councilmember Davis, did that answer your question? Councilmember Brown?
Can you give us specifics or examples of what we're talking about in terms of people we contract with? Are we talking about lead districts? Cities?
Industrial users.
Industrial users.
Yes,
Raw
ma'am.
water users.
We're talking about industrial users, or muds would be in general.
So what is their avenue of appeal if they have?
They have contractual relationships.
We have separate agreements.
Thank you.
Councilmember Martin?
Yes, just a clarification on that. In the northern section of District E, we have Severn Trent. I'm assuming this does not apply to Severn Trent, the statement you just made.
I'm sorry, you have what?
Severn Trent, who is they handle all the drainage issues up in Kingwood, not the city of Houston. So I just want to make sure that when you just got this information, they're not considered a user, they're considered a contractor.
That is
The
correct.
language you used was a contractor.
Well, an entity that we have a contract with to provide water.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we will move to a vote on approval of the amendment. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Now we have the main item as amended. Councilmember Cohen?
Thank you, Mayor. I tried to understand as best I could exactly what the amendment is saying as it affects the process. And I had a number of questions, and in my opinion, I haven't had them sufficiently answered. And so while emotionally I support this and certainly want some much better way of resolving the problems that we have, because I think every other council member has a significant number of people to call our office that have to do with water issues. I mean, it's a big one, and I want them to get a very positive result. But I have some questions that I'm not clear about, and I want my constituents to be satisfied to the ultimate extent that they can be, and so I'm going to tag it. Thank you.
Okay, the item as amended has been tagged.
Would you add my tag, please, ma'am?
Vice Mayor Pro Tem Bradford is tagging the item as well.
And Mayor, I'm sorry, but I was just asked whether I would really release my tag for purposes of discussion.
Yes, ma'am, if you would. For the purposes of discussion only, Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. And I wholeheartedly concur with Councilmember Cohen. And I think we have too many instances where, unfortunately, the citizens, they give us a unusually large bill, not only in one instance, but consecutively, and what can be done about that. when there's no way they could have used 60,000 gallons of water, month in and month out. And so there's still things that we need to look at and find ways, certainly to step forward. Don't know if there's any remedy moving forward for next week when we actually vote on this, but good step forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Christie?
Purpose of discussion, I'd just like to add that this is amendment to 47 is a step in the right direction. But smart meter doesn't mean infallible. And through personal experience, I just, it's not perfect. And so I like the tendency towards the flexibility, and I like the word fair, reasonable, common sense, because there still are fallacies in the system. They're good people over at the water department, they explain to the public real well, but smart meter doesn't mean infallible.
Yes, sir, and these changes do provide for the public to have an opportunity to observe the testing and meters to prove whether they are functioning properly. Councilmember Green?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to thank the council for amending to add the commercial entities to this particular bill. I also want to thank Councilmember Cohen for having us to step back to look at this. And I want to thank Gary Norman also for researching some of the issues that I had. But I would, in this week or during this period as we review this, I would hope that we would look with regard to the appellate process and the 24-month stay, if you will. If in fact there's a challenge or an issue with a particular bill, it gets resolved 2 months later, the bill comes back, there may not be recourse unless there's a 500% increase for an additional review. And I'm not sure if that's right. And so if we could just look at, for me, that provision, I think it would give our residents and citizens the opportunity that at any time, if there's an issue at a certain percentage, then they have the opportunity for a review. So I think that's what's given a lot of us heartburn. So if we could look at that in the next week, I think that'd be helpful.
Councilmember, I'd be happy to have us explore this further. I would say, though, that if every other month you have a spike in your bill, it's no longer an exceptional circumstance, it's a problem that you need to address. And I don't want to make this something that, costs us lots of money without getting to resolution. I think the goal is to provide recourse to citizens, not necessarily to allow them to ignore the fact that there's something going on.
Absolutely, and if there's an adjudication of whatever the final bill is, we actually, the customer will be responsible. But if we find out that perhaps, it wasn't a customer issue or what have you, or there's some ambiguity with the meter, then there needs to be a venue, to me, I think, before a 2-year period that they would have an opportunity to address it.
Councilmember Penny? Councilmember Penny?
Thank you, Mayor. In response to the question raised by Councilmember Brown, the same concern that I had, and the main concern I had about this was to deal with situations where there was an unexplained, large reading on a meter. I think under the current regulations, even if a resident had a licensed plumber come in or 2 licensed plumbers come in, they still couldn't get excused from the bill. And what I wanted to have was an opportunity for fair hearing on this issue. And sometimes the facts are just unexplainable. You usually discover this usage, several days or even months after it happens, so it's kind of hard to reconstruct the facts. But at least customers will be given a fair opportunity to explain, and if they can make their case, then the excessive billing will be reduced. I believe I'm correct on that, right, Mr. Feldman? We've talked about that specific issue several times. Yes, sir. And there are other issues that people are sensitive for. I know Mr. Laster was very interested in having an independent review of meters, and we've got that in there. And but there may be other concerns, but we have to be mindful that we have, what, 500,000 water accounts, something like that in the city. So it doesn't mean we should fall short on due process, but we need to, to have a look to be sure what we're proposing is reasonable. But I think we are getting there in terms of unexplained high billings. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Pro Tem Bradford.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to get on the record that another piece of the equation has to do with the Comptroller's Office. I submitted a correspondence to the Comptroller's Office about 4 or 5 months ago, asking the City Comptroller's Office to look at our metering process, and their office is currently conducting an audit of our metering process and the mechanics of the meter, and that is underway. They've given probably 2 updates as to where they are, and indicated that I think the next 60 days or so, they will have their audit complete, looking at the metering process and the mechanics of the meter, because I'm convinced that there are problems with some of the meters in the field out there. To what extent those problems exist, I don't know. But they started that audit several months ago, and I think that's something that we need to have on the table as well as we move forward with modifying or establishing, I should say, a process where our citizens can have an appellate review. In addition to that, the 24-month stay or the one adjustment in 24-month period, I'm concerned about that too, whether it should be 24 months, or why is it 24 months? Why not 1 year? Why not 6 months? Why not 3 years? How was 24 months decided? If in fact the criteria is met, as you have said, Mayor, it doesn't make sense to have somebody every month, every 2 months, going through this process. And there is a city revenue component to the issue on the table here, but at the same time, if in fact the circumstances exist and we can't explain it but for that issue, what is it, the rest of the local, if it's there, whether it's every 6 months or once a year. I just want to dig more into why 24 months and why not 6 months or even 1 year. Plus, get with the Comptroller's Office and see where they are on completing the audit of the metering process and the mechanics of those meters. Thank you.
Councilmember Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. A question to Mr. Feldman. The amendment that we just, assuming we just passed and then we tagged it, something else, still trying to understand all this process. It was for 47751A, which is exceptional circumstances, but we also have a 4775A, which has the same verbiage, and that is any single-family residential customer. So so there are 2 separate ones. So we just took care of the exceptional circumstance adjustment, but we did not take care of the adjustment of an unusually large bill for commercial accounts, correct?
That is correct. The unusually large bill adjustment is a more liberal adjustment. It has been on the books for some period of time. It applies to single family only. It would cover a circumstance every 12 months, and it gives greater relief in that if the bill is more than twice the annual average, then the homeowner can get, or the property owner can get relief for anything in excess of 1.5 times the average bill. And there's no cap on it either in terms of the total amount of relief. So it's very different than the exceptional circumstances adjustment, which is a brand new adjustment that's being added